Hello friends, welcome to Data Pandit. So today we are going to learn about how to read the Excel spreadsheet. So how many ways we can read the Excel data and what we need, what are the different components to read the Excel data and what probably could be the challenge to read the Excel spreadsheet or Excel workflow actually. So with respect to that, so first of all, let's see, how many ways we can do that. So first of all, read Excel files, right? So first mechanism component is read Excel spreadsheet. So this component is used to read, you know, state Excel spreadsheet. Okay, and within that we will have multiple tabs, right? So those different sheets it can read, and the types, what are the different data types, sorry, file types it can use is like .xls or .xlxx or xm. So these are the different extension of the Excel data. So these are all can be read by the read Excel spreadsheet. So what we do is, um, so bef- so let's hook up to the kind of structure. Let's say this is a graph, right? So this, first of all, we are going to check the read Excel spreadsheets. So there is another way of reading the data is a read Excel flow. So this is the data is coming as in a flow in the Abinitio flow, and we are going to read those flow and as a stream of the data, and the records of these files would be created as a streaming of the data. So first mechanism is like use the read Excel spreadsheet, and there are you know uh, there are record format we need to assign into the ports, and then let's say we are reading the Excel spreadsheet, we have to assign some record format in the output port, and then we can supply the reformat component, and then let's say roll up, and then we are outputting the data. So this is, let's say, this is a small graph actually. So now, so how to what is that, how to read. So we are going to take the read Excel spreadsheet. So this is mostly used for batch graphs, right? So these are the different extension, file extension we can use. So there are parameters we need to configure basically. So these are the different parameters. There are more parameters. So these are the important parameter we need to configure actually. Give the XLS name, Excel file name, and then there is a seat selection. So I said, right, there will be a multiple tabs, multiple seats within the spreadsheet, right? So there could be a how to read that we need to configure in that, whether we want to read a single spreadsheet, or we want to a single sheet, or we want to read the multiple sheet within the spreadsheet, that we can configure. Let's say seat selection is by index, then we can say, you know we want to read the second index, then only the second file will be read, right? Like likewise, by name we want to read, or we want to read everything. So these are the three options in the seat selection parameter comes. So depending upon the index, let's say I'm applying the seat selection as index, then give the index name, which index you want to read. And then if it is an header, so, sometimes what we have is, like in Excel we will have 2 or 3 rows as a header. So we can specify that seed header row is 1, 2, or 3. Let's say three are the rows which are used as a header, right? Seat name. If you are giving the seat selection as by name, then give the name of the seat, so that this spreadsheet will read only that particular seat. Otherwise, rest of the things it won't read. Then if we are using as an UTF-8 true or false, right, record delimiter is going to be \0. See this in this takes care of the this kind of extension, right? So earlier it was \n in the older version, but currently we have \0. So \0 takes care of like this kind of extension, right? This kind of extension, right? \c, \n. Sometimes embedded, delimiters comes right in the seat. So if you apply this \0, it takes care of both. So we need to have a Java actually to read the spreadsheet. So you need to give the Java home and all, right? And then Java options is another parameters. Then skip empty rows. If you want to skip those empty rows, then also you can specify last row, last column. What is the last row? What is the last column? You can specify. There are multiple. So then there is a date format, right? So many times what we need is like sometimes we there are formula associated in this for particular cell, right, in the spreadsheet. So and the date is like a numeric number. So if you don't specify this date format, the date will be coming as a decimal format, decimal, or you can call it as a number format, right? So it won't come in like this. If you want to if we know that this is the date column and we need to specify like, so it will automatically it will convert, okay, while reading the data, right? So if we are not reading it as a date, this particular format, we have other ways to converting the decimal into the number, so that we are going to see. So when we read this Excel spreadsheet, so let's see this graph. This is the graph. So what we need to do is you supply this all these parameters, and then in output port of this reads Excel spreadsheet, you have to specify like this record format. This is the fixed kind of format basically. So you need to give the first field as a seat. Okay, second, from second onwards, then tab delimited, second onwards, and you will have to give the these field names. If you know that my first column is like account ID, second column is revenue date, and right, like this revenue date, customer ID, these kind of columns I have, and then last of it I have a rest of the columns, right? So after account ID there are many more columns, but just don't want we don't want you know to be read explicitly. We just will read the every rest of the line as an one field actually. So that's how you, until the record delimiter comes, right? So from the account ID onwards we are going to read that everything in the one field. So that's how you can specify the output port of the this one Excel spreadsheet. Okay, so that you can give sheet, account ID, revenue, then last time. Okay, the last field delimiter would be backslash 0. This is a kind of new line basically. Now, so the other thing is we need to take care of is like a reformat component. I'm supplying the reformat component. So sometimes I said, right, if we are not specifying any date format, right, in this field, this configuration parameter of the read Excel spreadsheet, if we don't specify this this date format, we have a we have an XFR actually in the form of inbuilt transform function basically in Abinitio, so that we can use these Excel to DML date function or Excel to DML date time function to convert the date to date or date time to date time, right? I mean, in the sense of the if I don't specify this format, date format, my revenue date would come as a decimal number, or I mean I should say integer numbers, right? Some, so even if it is let's say 24th April 1998, so it will come as a number actually. So to convert that number into correct date, we have a functions actually, inbuilt function. So you need to include this XFR, inbuilt XFR, into the reformat function, reformat graph, reformat component, and then in the reformat transform function, you can utilize these, you can call these and you can assign that, right? Other formatting also can be done in the reformat. So that is depending upon the requirement from our side. And then you can, in the downstream, you can use any component, whatever you want, right? Depending upon the use case or requirement. And finally, if you want to land up the data into the any file, right? So this is the complete end-to-end mechanism, right? So I said that we need to create a, so mainly we need to use this component. We need to configure these parameters, right? I said these many parameters and other parameters also there. So depending upon the requirement, we can configure those other parameters as well. And also need to create the record format. So there are multiple ways of creating the record format in the Excel spreadsheet consideration. Is like we can use them manually because we know that how our data looks like in the spreadsheet. We can use manually, or what we can use, you can use the generate tab. So in the Excel spreadsheet itself, you will have the generate tab, right? In the port tab, you can have a generate. you know button, so you can click on that and you can utilize that. Also I have a use excel zen dml ksh built-in utility of the Abinitio. So that also, this is a command actually, so that also you can use from the command, and you can use that excel spreadsheet, and using that you can read, you can supply different options and parameters in this command, and you can create the decode format. So this is first part wherein we have read the spreadsheet basically. So what if we have multiple spreadsheet, or if we have to have use the reading the, we need to read the excels in continuous graph, like, right? So we have another way of reading the excel data actually. This is read excel flow. So over the flow, if any Excel spreadsheet I have, so over the flow I can consume my in input port, and then I can read that and convert that Excel into the stream of records, right? One record per Excel spreadsheet, Excel flow record. So let's say I have multiple files. So what we can use it, we can use the read Excel flow. So okay. So let's say I have, this, I have a multiple files basically. So I can use read multiple files component, so that we can read the multiple files. Or best way is to, I have an out input file, and then I have an, let's say, normalize it. I have a, kind of normalize. It's not a good way of doing it. So let's say I'm using input, and then there is a normalize. So what I can do is directory listing, you can say. So I have a create data component or an input component, and if I'm giving the input component, I will have, let's say I have a list of files specified in the list of Excel sheet files I specified in the one file actually. Okay, Excel list, let's say Excel list date I have. Mm, I have a file called $AI serial Excel sheets dot date. So there are multiple files in the this file actually. So let's say I have this. So I will read this, and then I will read this file, and then I can, so for one record I will have one file, right? So that also you can avoid, and then you can have this one, right? You can basically you have to supply that Excel, right, to this one read Excel flow basically. Okay, and somehow you need to give the input port as a file name string \t and void big and in integer Excel's content. Okay, so somehow you need to create the flow in such a way that you need to give the this input port as an input port actually, as a this record format. Okay, so whether you give the create data command, and then you use the normalize, so that you give the directory listing and you give the those file names. Okay, and then the read Excel flow. So the parameter of read Excel flow is going to be most of the parameter is going to be similarly actually. Okay, so that you don't have to worry about much actually. So the similar thing, and the what you need to take care of is you need to give the Excel sheets actually as an input to read Excel flow, and this will read the data, and it will read those Excels and produce the one data record for a particular row of the Excel. Okay, like it does in the Excel spreadsheet, right? So but it happens on the flow. So that is the difference. You don't so this is in this first part, I mean the first component is going to be used as a read Excel spreadsheet, but here on the flow we can use this, and we can read the data from Excel to, we can convert that DML for, I mean, one record format, right? So the output port will be looking like this. Okay, we will have a file name, we will have a seat. Okay, we will see it in the sense of which file actually, I mean, what is the seat actually within that file name. Let's say we have multiple seat particular file, so that sheet will distinguish file name, and sheet will distinguish the particular record actually from which file it came, or what is the sheet of that file, right? So here we will have multiple files, and in each file, let's say we have multiple sheets also. So that output, the output of this read Excel flow will give me everything: read, file name, and sheet, and then rest the record, right? From first column to the last of the column. Let's say we are reading into the line, and then we will have, let's say, I can use the reformat. I can individually I can create the field from the line. So this is a comma, let's say tab separated. So from the line I can create different fields actually. Okay, so all the fields will be read into the one line actually. So then you can use the partition by expression, depending upon the file name and sheet. If you want to, route the data from, but using the partition by expression, partition by expression can have multiple output flow, right? Not output port, basically multiple output flow. Okay, and then you can use other things like maybe output file, or maybe you can produce different files, right? So this is about the structure of the graph actually. So let's see some more points over here. So similarly, I mean, we can use the record format manually, or we can use this Excel to GenDML, right? And we will take some questions, right? Read Excel flow. Why we are using it? We can use in batch and continuous graph. Read Excel flow. What are the parameters? Similar parameters of the read Excel spreadsheets. So there could be a multiple, those few parameters which are different. So that you can modify. Converting Excel date and date time. So similar things we can use. If let's say if we are reading the data uh, in this line, we are reading the lines, right? So and the date format is the data coming as a number of, we can convert that number into the particular date, right? Using these functions, same converting Excel date or date time, right? So these things can be done. So why we use the read Excel spreadsheet? It can be used as an um, uh, uh, use it in a batch or continuous both graphs, and also it will output the content in the streaming actually, one record per spreadsheet record. So that is same as an Excel spreadsheet, and also it is a better performing. So earlier there was a component was a read multiple Excel spreadsheets. So in comparison to this, comparison to that, this read Excel flow is better performing. So it is used. Okay. So for this video, I mean, so that's all actually. So we are going to see how to write the data, Excel spreads, Excel data into the, we are producing the, Excel spreadsheet basically. So that we are going to check in the next video session. Thank you so much.